Hey everybody, Speedy back with Banu Studio Inks to continue doing the share the files of me doing my early concept art. This is the first rendering I did of him. I did it about 2 years ago, recorded it about 2 years ago. Um, he's been refined and a lot more has been done on Z since this, and this is only part of it. It was hard to edit this, and this video is a lot longer than I intended. It's hard to find a cutoff point. I didn't want to stretch this into like 5, 10 videos of me painting. And even with me speeding it up, I still end up, this video ended up being like 14 minutes, and I'm sorry about that. And yeah, it doesn't even conclude it. There's a whole lot more uh, footage I'm still got that I've edited, but I'm kind of running up against time. So, gonna go ahead and put it out at the length that it is. In the future, I'll probably condense and refine this entire series. I do still intend to take you through some of the other concepts of him. I may not show all the SketchUps of him. Um, all the other ones that I did, I've done a lot of them. I've developed him over 2 years. Like I said, he's a character that's interesting. He's, as you can see in this, he's kind of displayed with some kind of magical or mystical or, primal kind of power. I'm going to probably take it in a direction where I go ahead and possibly just print out my storyboards and share some of the origins of these characters. Um, this one's got some really impactful ones. The way I've laced it through the lore is interesting. Um, so he does have a core identity. He has an origin. I have stories of him when he's a baby, when he's a child, that I've storyboarded. Mostly it was for me to have a good reference on his like pathos, who he is. I go really deep when I create characters, so they hit the places in the archetypes laid out by Joseph Campbell. Um, but I also deviate from him a little bit. We're all individuals, so we'll have our own individual perceptions and interpretations of the things that we read and we research. It's impossible for us all to research every single scrap of information and folklore that exists, but I do try to go pretty deep and I do work to connect it to like archaeology and physical evidence. Um, you see, I have this interesting view on archaeology. Western archaeology has very high marks for their technical approach. So I will give them that. Their technical approach in the West is excellent. So they really are really good at filtering and cleaning and, working from a very organized grid kind of format. I've worked on some of these sites. Um, I guess a short segue while you look at this color up is when I was a child, I went away to 4-H camp and I was on the East Coast at the time. And so you had lots of options with 4-H. You could do like the equestrian, you could do, they had lots of different kind of specializations camps that you could go to. And I kind of went to one that was both equestrian and archaeology because the specific site where the equestrian stuff was near an archaeological site that was being worked in Delaware. And that's where I found my first I guess you could say fossil or artifact. It was an arrowhead. They have it there in their museum now. And it's the first of many that I found. I like to go out and find artifacts. I study folklore. I study language. I study migration of humans. I study humans deeply, psychologically, religiously, mystically, folklore. Um, and from my life experiences and the things I've studied, I incorporate a lot of things beyond Joseph Campbell, but he built an exceptional framework, one that just absolutely can't be ignored. It's fundamental to writing. You must know Joseph Campbell to truly write. But if you want to be the best writer you can, you've got to do a lot of reading. And I'm not talking fiction. Now, I'm not saying ignore fiction. There's things that are classed as fiction that are archaic. And so it's really the truth is they shouldn't even be classed as fiction and they shouldn't be classed as truth. They should just be classed as unknown. We don't know. We're never actually going to know, even if we get full blown letters, documents, everything. That's still a person's perception, if that makes any sense. So, like an example, Herodotus gets bagged a lot. Herodotus is actually doesn't deserve to get bagged a lot for what he gets bagged for. It's like, well, the name of his work translates into history. Uh, but that's our later adaptation of what the word means and not what he necessarily intended when he was using that word, for one. So it's a lost in translation point. But the other part of it is he was pretty clear in the beginning of his work that he was going on a traveler's journey. So somewhat like me, I'm a collector of archaic books. I have an incredible library. I have books that are three times, and in some cases, one book that's four times the age of my own country that I was born in. I have maps of a world that has not existed anymore in 200 years, original maps. I have Lord Kelvin's original theorem on temperature before it was proven. Um, which brings up an interesting point, perception. We've been measuring temperature and weather patterns, highly scientific since Kelvin, but we've only been doing it for 300 years. The rest of our pattern mapping based on the planet and its past prior to Kelvin is largely us going back and taking core samples and things like that. That's not a clear picture of the physical reality. It can only tell you the temperature. It can't actually tell you what the atmosphere and surface reaction was really like for that which inhabited it. And as much as they think they can tell you on a chemical basis and they can make a lot of inferences. And this is where, I mean, Western science is Achilles' heel, the part of it I don't like. Western philosophy has openly divorced itself from philosophy. But at its origin, philosophy was the over science of all the other sciences through like Aristotle and Plato's filter of what sciences were to be, and Aristotle specifically. He gets, picked at a lot, but I actually like him more from a scientific perspective than Plato. From only the sciences, not necessarily the philosophies. I do prefer Aristotle and I'll just own it. But what I mean about is this the overreaching of sciences. Philosophy was intended to be the ethics. It was intended to be the guide of what questions were asked, so that all the other sciences were supposed to answer that question in their own way. So they're all supposed to search for the answer to a singular question that is coming out of the philosophy, the school of philosophy. But the other side of the school and sciences of philosophy is the temperance. Druids don't have it, and the shamans do. And what I mean by that is just because you can doesn't mean you should. That gets into the realm of philosophy. Philosophy is the ethics of science. When Western science divorced itself from philosophy and allowing philosophy to guide us, science lost itself. It can't be trusted. Now it's just like any other kind of entity that you have to go up against in the world. It's dogmatic, and it's already got a long history if you look at archaeology of telling stories to fit what they find instead of letting what they find be a mystery or be what it is. It's fine to speculate, but you can't count speculation as science and you can't count it as proof. That gets into the collective consciousness and collective perception. That gets into deeper things like actual light theory, which is really important for an artist, a studio artist like myself. and it comes deeply from my study. This gets into really, existential kind of stuff. The truth is, we're all agreeing that a table's a table, but in reality, it's not a table. It's just that we've agreed that it's a table. And this might surprise people, but we all do see it differently. But we see it similarly enough that we can all agree on giving it a name based on its purpose. But that's not actually what it is. That gets into really complicated things. Um, I may get into it a little more in some of these SketchUps because, like I said, I don't want to give away a story. I want the animations to tell the stories. That's why I put the work in on them. There's a second part to this, uh, obviously, where it gets refined and finalized. And I got a little surprised at the end of it. And then to totally conclude out the series on Sketching Z, I intend to actually make a portrait to put in my kind of gallery. As I mentioned in the previous video, I'm influenced by Ray Harryhausen. A little bit in his stop motion animation techniques, but more so in the places he explored, how he explored them. And because of that, like I've watched a lot of his films. I have all of them, and I rewatch them regularly because I'm fascinated by the drive, the vision, and his final production and his interpretation of the myths. See, some people would be like, "Oh, well, he's not really following the real story." Well, if you look at the place he's drawing his stories from, he's drawing his stories from an archaic period where each literal city state has their own version of the story, and some of the city states don't even know about it, where names get interchanged based on the region they're told in. And the true nature of folklore is that we're supposed to play with it. We're supposed to alter it to fit who and what we are at the time. It's part of us learning about ourselves. And RPG, role playing gig, that's what this is the conceptual art for, is built around the very same idea. Um, I've studied it enough and found a pattern in it that nobody's seen. And so I'm producing it in fiction, but it's based in a large amount of facts, or to say a large amount of data that exists about these time periods and about our own human history. I will give away this piece about role playing gig is it starts in a very primal place. A very primal place. It starts in Plato's cave in a way. And I don't want to get too far into that. That's something that people need to study and read and learn and understand for themselves. And a restoration of Western philosophy and not living too much on the past bones. We're supposed to continue to study them, but we're also supposed to be out here producing and refining them. We're not supposed to be dogmatic. And I'm trying to do my part in that with RPG, and that's what an artist is supposed to do. We hold up the mirror and reflect society back to itself. We also find the things that are overlooked that are connected that people don't realize. But you got to be careful. There are people that know the same things I know, and they don't want the majority of humans to be aware of. And so, like many writers, from Lord Byron to many, many, many others, we hide our work in fiction. We hide our archaeology, our gnosis in fiction. So there is an intent that you're to read between the lines in the work itself. Your imagination is a part of the story, not just mine. Your perception is a part of the story, not just the creators. I hope that I deliver something that opens minds, makes them curious, makes them go back and research things. Well, anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Uh, I appreciate everybody that come and check it out. Like I said, sorry this was long. Like and subscribe, share, help get this going. If you like what I'm doing, if you don't, then hey, don't. Do you? I do me. I'm happy. You should be happy. You should try to be anyway. All right. Peace out, y'all. Much love.